And this should mean that we're now in view of everybody. Okay, Christophe hears us better now when he unmuted us. Well, that's always a good idea to unmute the people you're trying to listen
Yes.
to. This should mean that we're live now, and that
Great.
also means that I can say welcome, Ronald, to the Meug Late Night.
Thank you, Jeroen.
Very nice to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looking forward to our discussion.
Well, I'm also looking forward to it. We've been preparing this for a couple of meetings, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So everybody that's watching, welcome to Meug Late Night. This is, I think, it's already the 7th edition of Meug Late Night, which started as a little bit of fun, and which is still a little bit of fun. So welcome all, and the regular viewers know that we always start in the same fashion, Ronald. Well, I have to introduce you, of course. You are the brewer of the Flying Dutchman NoMad Brewing Company. You are a Dutchman living in Finland, but we meet each other on a small island in Norway today, where you are staying right now. You are in a very Norwegian place. We can see it behind you with all the woods and stuff. So that's the introduction, and we start with pouring something nice in our glasses, and I'm going to ask you what you pour in your glass. So let's just do that.
Yeah. What I'm going to pour is one of my own beers.
Of course.
And it's the Rose Hipped.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are on this very small island. And today I went to the Monopoly shop. And the selection, what was there was, I think, under 10 beers.
And how many good ones?
I didn't see anything what I would buy on this moment.
Okay, yeah.
There were a few good ones, a couple of Norwegian microbreweries.
Yeah.
But nothing what I wanted to bring to taste here with you.
Okay. Well, then it's better to taste something that you made yourself, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this beer is actually was our first sour beer.
All right.
And we made that 4 years ago. We brewed it first time.
Mm-hmm.
And also was really early. Like in Finland, I think we were one of the first breweries with a sour beer.
All right.
So at that time it was in a way risky because it was unknown still.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see sour beers are everywhere, and it's has become trendy, you can say.
So why did you make a sour beer in a place that didn't know sour beers?
I like sour beers.
That's a very good reason, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And that was basically going back to my first experiences in Belgium.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So when I went to, it was in the end 80s, I did many brewery visits in that time, and I was working in a small brewery in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And my most impressive brewery visits were actually in Frank Boon, and Rodenbach.
Yeah.
Now everyone knows them, and in that time it was in their difficult period, you can say. They were, the sour breweries, the Geuzes were struggling.
Everybody had forgotten about them, basically.
Yeah, they were dusty, and Frank did in that time a really amazing job and took a big risk to rebuild the brewery, and he showed me the whole process. Mm-hmm. And that was for me like, wow, that style of brewing was really fascinating. Something what was unknown for me in that time, and that changed something in my thinking as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, you're speaking of the end of the 80s. I mean, that's before the craft beer movement. Craft beer didn't exist at that time.
No, I was working in that time in Brewery De Waal. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first craft breweries in Holland in that time. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, we got De Waal for starting up, and the Molen in Amsterdam.
Of course, yeah.
Or the Molen, het IJ, sorry.
Het IJ, yeah.
It is in a windmill.
Same thing.
They were the first ones,
Okay.
and everything in that time was still, it was totally lager oriented, as we had only 5 big Pils breweries, and that was
Yeah.
it. So there was a time when the Belgian beers came into Holland. That
Yeah.
was the craft beer trend from that time.
Yeah. So Holland got to know our triples and
Yeah,
the stuff like that, and that was
yeah,
okay. Yeah, you can see that as the
yeah,
first craft beer movement, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. Koning,
A bolleke.
the Koning and Palm,
Palm. Yeah.
they were opening up the market in a way in the 80s.
All right. So what? There wasn't really a beer drinking habit in the Netherlands at that time, or
Yeah, pills drinking.
yeah, pills just a lot.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and the people who really liked something special, they had Palm.
Head palm, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I have to admit, when I was about 18 years old, I was the guy in the bar that drank palm because I didn't want to drink the normal pills. I had to
exactly.
have something special. So yeah,
Yeah, that was that time.
yeah. All right,
And
cool.
and when I moved to Finland in the early 90s, it was the same thing. Nothing. There was nothing, only pills, no craft breweries yet.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first import started in 95.
All right.
And that was dark Czech lagers were there the market openers, like Palm and the Koning was in Holland.
Yeah,
The dark Czech lagers were the thing in Finland.
yeah.
Something, a little bit more special than pills,
A little bit
but
heavier too, maybe on the alcohol.
not really. No, it was
I
like
know, of course,
the
not
dark
palm. Yeah,
one was only like 3.8,
yeah. Okay.
8%, around 4. So light, but it opened up people's, perspective from, hey, there is something else.
Yeah.
And that's the start of a change.
Yeah. It's the first seeds were sown, and then afterwards. So when did you start with brewing as being the Flying Dutchman?
That's now 5 years ago.
That's only 5 years ago. Yeah,
This,
because
yeah,
before that
this
you had a
month
couple of
actually.
other ventures.
Yeah, I had another company in Finland as well, Diamond Beer Brewing Company.
Mm-hmm.
We started there as I was also brewing beer in Belgium and
Yeah.
bringing them to Finland. Specialities basically, seasonals.
Mm-hmm.
And after a year, I started to import also beer.
Okay.
And the import business started to grow. And that became the main business. And brewing your own beers, that was more like a hobby, and that made us special compared to the other importers.
Okay.
That I did for 11 years. And then I sold that company and I went traveling for 6 years.
6 years. You just went around the globe, basically.
Mostly Europe, Morocco as well.
Yeah.
Everything was done by with the camper.
Okay. Is that the
Because
same camper you still have, or do you have a new
yeah,
one? It's the same
yeah,
one?
no, the same.
Okay. Wait, maybe
So
just
it
a
has,
little bit of backstory because Ronald was trying to do this talk from his camper, but it didn't work out with technology and stuff, so that's why he's not in the camper now. But that would have been really great to see you in the camper that you traveled the
yeah,
world with.
yeah,
Cool. So and then 5 years ago you started with Flying Dutchman, and then you're having the Rose Hip Sour now.
yeah,
Is that the first sour you ever brewed?
yeah. That was the first.
The first.
We basically came almost at the same time also with the apple sour,
Okay.
and we still do that as well.
Mhm.
Rosehip was the first.
And
And
why did
after
it take
that,
you? Why did it take you so long to brew a sour? If you had in the end of the 80s, you were ignited by Frank Boon, and then it took you until
through
2015, 16 to brew a sour.
Yeah, but it all have to start from somewhere,
Hmm.
and the focus was in sour was a craft is already a niche.
Yeah,
Sour is an even smaller niche.
yeah,
So to start 5 years ago, to start with a sour was was just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do it. And now there are, of course, a lot of breweries who only do sour. So that's possible.
Yeah.
But that time, the market is changing so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
that time it was not possible.
you were basically waiting for your opportunity to brew a sour. As soon as you saw
Yeah.
this is a good idea now, let's do this.
Yeah. And I think the company was 1 year about when I started with the first sour. So it takes time before you have made your fundamentals in
Mm-hmm.
place with a company. Even 1 year is too short. It takes you minimum 3 years before you have some kind of base to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
So to do those things already after a year is already taking a risk,
Yeah, sure.
because you don't go mainstream. You go really into something what people don't drink yet.
Mm-hmm.
And
What I find interesting is also that so you obviously had this idea of doing a sour once someday in your life. That's one of the questions I wanted to ask you is where do ideas for a beer come from? Where do you get your inspiration from?
can be anywhere, everywhere. It can be by traveling, by eating something in a restaurant, and you get a flavor or an ingredient. By walking in the nature,
Mm-hmm.
you pick up elements. Reading a magazine, by accident, let's say by accident, you turn on the radio or a TV and somebody talks about something, and hey, I was thinking about that, and you
And
pick it up.
okay. And is it really a flash of inspiration, or is it also just because I'm very interested in how creativity works and where it comes from? And some say it's a flash, you can't predict it, you can't know when it comes,
Yeah.
and others say it's just really hard work to get a good idea.
Um, it's mostly a flash for me,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some beers which took really long. There are some beers I've been playing with a year or
Mm-hmm.
over a year in your mind. So, and you don't get it. It's still not ready. You play with the idea, but you don't know which direction to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get suddenly, or you meet somebody, or you hear something, and then hey, that's the direction.
All right.
One example is, for example, the mushroom beer.
All right. Tell me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, since I've been living in Finland, I got in touch with mushrooms, because Finnish people, they are really knowledgeable about mushrooms, and everyone basically collects mushrooms in the autumn. They
All
go
right.
into the woods.
Just in the wild.
Yeah, and they collect and they make all kind of dishes with it. So from there, I start to fall in love with mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, since the start of Flying Dutchman, I always had an idea that one time I want to make a beer with mushrooms, even how
Okay.
strange that is.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't figure out what kind of mushrooms would work.
And also how to use them, probably.
And how to use them.
Yeah.
So I was playing around already with different types of mushrooms, but I was not happy with the flavor they gave. Until that's also again one of those coincidences. I got an email from the Helsinki University.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Japanese professor, and she is specialized in the matsutake mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
Matsutake is a Japanese word, but the mushroom grows actually in the Nordics.
All right.
In Lapland, Swedish and Finnish Lapland, basically.
Okay.
And her focus was to find companies who have ideas to use the matsutake mushroom in a more commercial way, so they could be used, because to collect them and sell them fresh, it's very short term.
Mm-hmm.
So she was looking for companies who could use them, like now for us in beer.
Okay.
And I met her and I said, oh, very interesting. And she had a sample with her, and I could smell, the dried mushroom, and said, wow, that's the flavor what fits in beer.
Okay, which would work well with the grains and the hops and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Nice,
yeah.
nice, nice. Well,
And then,
if you're ever back in Belgium, you should go to a little restaurant in Geel with a friend of ours, because as an appetizer he serves mushroom chips. So
oh yeah,
yeah, for deep fried mushrooms basically, but really good
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah, that would really fit with this beer.
I guess yeah. Now you say it. Now you're talking about it. I guess I should talk to Harry about it, and he should get that beer on his menu probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a Bulgarian fusion restaurant.
Oh, cool.
So he does. His wife is Bulgarian. They do all kinds of stuff themselves. They make their own yogurt. They make their own cheeses. They
Yeah,
grow their own vegetables, and he's a really good cook. So
yeah, that would be really interesting to see that.
for the people who want to check that out, it's called Jalto. Zjalto in Geel. Really good stuff. So check that out. We're
So,
we're getting on a sidetrack here. All
but so
right, cool.
ideas can come from wherever.
Yeah. Is there anything you're working on right now
That's a good
that you can talk
question.
about?
I always play with ideas. Um, what can I say? What I'm working on? Some kind of other berries.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause here there are so many different types of berries.
Yeah.
I like to use berry. Now we have used how many beers with berries?
Mm-hmm.
Um, 3 or 4, I think. And I would like to have something else, but I can't say yet what.
Okay.
It's just a random idea. Another idea is I've been playing with that already 2 years. The spruce, the spruces of the tree, of a needle tree.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I really like that flavor.
There are
And
a
there
couple
are,
of
of
beers
course,
that use that already.
true,
Yeah.
true.
But it's really
And
nice
so
if you
that,
do it well.
yeah, and that's something what I've been testing already with our tree hugging, and it would also make sense,
Yeah.
to have even more kind of a tree element in that beer.
Yeah. There's also a really nice gin that uses pine spruce. Really
Yeah.
powerful. The Matterhorn gin.
Oh
Really powerful.
yeah.
It tastes like a Christmas tree basically. So
Yes.
it's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was in on your festival even, I think, 2 years ago or 3 years
Well, a
ago
couple
when
of
we
years
were
ago you were
there.
on the festival. I don't know if Matterhorn was there. There's certainly could have been, but yeah, there's a
No,
couple of those gins. Yeah.
there was a small brewery there, and they have used a whole Christmas tree in one batch.
Okay. I'll have
I
to
don't
check that
remember
out.
the
I can't
name.
remember who that was, but well, I'll check that out. I can't even remember my own festival, so yeah, that's pretty good. So, when we're talking about ideas, it's also it starts with an idea, but then you have to, of course,
Yeah,
make a recipe out of that to brew a beer.
yeah.
That takes a long time, I can imagine.
Also different. The mushroom took really long. It needed a lot of testing. It's a lot of ingredient testing to find the optimum amount, and then also the balance, and also on which states in the beer production it would be best.
Hmm.
So that took really a lot of testing, and also to find, for example, because matsutake is such an expensive mushroom, I wanted to combine it with another mushroom so their flavor would marry,
Hmm.
and you get a bit of support from both. So I think that took about a year. There are other beers which are like few months.
Hmm. Which are
So it
easier.
basically is between 2-3 months to a
Yeah.
year.
Okay. In the live
And
chat, people are saying now on Christophe, the two Christophs, because there's two Christophs watching, they're saying that the brewery that used the Christmas tree was Totem. Totem
oh yeah,
Brewery.
Totem. Yeah,
Yeah, Totem. Klaas
yeah, I
from
remember
Totem
now.
did that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't remember, but thanks to
yeah,
the beer guys in the live chat, we know now.
yeah.
So,
That was really good. I really liked it, their beer.
all right, cool. Uh, yeah, he'll be nice to hear that. He'll be he'll love to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, so you have the rose hip. I haven't even told you what I have in my glass yet. I was thinking about what I should put in my glass because I try to not take something that you made, of course, because that would be
Yeah.
easy, but something that relates to you. And I was looking through my beer cabinet and I found something from basically probably quite near your home, from Frontaal in Breda,
Oh yeah,
from
yeah,
Brabant.
yeah.
And
Nice.
I thought it would be nice for a globe-trotting traveler like you, to get something from your home again,
True,
because
true.
I don't know. Do you come back to the Netherlands often?
I was in March, and I think now in summertime again.
Hmm. So, but yeah, of course you're living in Finland right now. Um,
Yeah,
what I was also wondering about is, I think I can see a lot of the references of the places you visited in the beers that you make. Since, but is Holland still in your beers? What aspect of your home country is still in the way you work or in what you make?
yeah, it is. It is. I think it's a little bit the freedom element
Okay.
is there. You know, not about not physical ingredients, but the what can you say if you can talk about spiritual ingredients.
All right.
And that is also a big part of your taste experience
Mm-hmm.
because uh, you know that's why I choose also the Flying Dutchman, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's linked to the old ship, you know, like we have seen in the Pirates of the Caribbean, for example.
So the Flying Dutchman
And
is basically a ship that's doomed to travel around the world
yeah,
aimlessly, basically,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, with lost souls aboard.
true, true.
Okay.
And that's also something what I have then experienced through my traveling with the camper. You know
Okay.
that you can travel without any time limitation, you know, and you have no goal. You just follow the road, and sometimes you turn left and sometimes right,
Mm-hmm.
and you see where you end up. So I
Yeah.
think that's something in the Dutch blood, you know, from the 1700s. We had that traveling spirit.
Yeah. Is it also the spirit of looking at other places and trying to, because the Dutch have had many colonies and places abroad that they uh, were uh, were involved in. Is it
Yeah,
that the yearning for the unknown, something like that?
for me, yeah, the unknown is is attracting,
Yeah.
and you're you know every day is a surprise basically when you're on the road,
Okay.
and that can be scary. It can be scary as well.
I was
You know,
gonna say that. Yeah.
it's not always you know that the sun is shining and you are positively on the road. You get also a lot of other experiences,
Hmm.
you know, especially if you travel alone, for example. You go, you know, you can go through lonely times. You come into places where you maybe don't feel safe, but you all have to cope with it.
Hmm.
It's a big life experience, you can say.
Yeah.
And you yeah, you learn to trust more yourself somehow through all those experiences.
Hmm.
And that's a part of the adventure.
Yeah. Have you now settled down, or can you imagine going with your camper again and leaving for the next 6 years? 6 years.
I could.
You could. Yeah.
both things are nice. You know, to be on the road is really nice because all the time things are happening. I think a lot of people experience that when you are for a long term on the road. At some point, at some point in time, your brain gets overwhelmed, and you need again to have a base and settle down and go through your experiences and be on one spot. Because to be all the time on the road, especially if you are moving every day, that can be tough.
Yeah.
It's not a holiday. What some people can think. A holiday is when you go 1 or 2 weeks. You go to Spain, you lay on the beach, you go to a bar and a restaurant and a bar and the beach. But on the road, you come in all kind of situations where you have to think, and you have to think where you're going to sleep next night. Where you're going to have your drinking water. Because I don't go to campsites. You are just sleeping, on a spot what you find.
Yeah.
And in Scandinavia, that's pretty easy. Those countries are huge,
and everything is very well organized too in Scandinavia.
Yeah, and
even
safe.
in the wild.
Yes. So you can be totally on your own. That can be maybe for some people scary to, you can travel for days and you don't see a soul. But it's a great experience.
Isn't the biggest difference with a holiday that a holiday you know that it's going to end, and you know when it's going to end, and if you're just traveling,
you know where you are.
Yeah.
You know where you are, and you are basically in a safe spot. You have a hotel and a bed, and you know where you are. You know where you're going to eat, and from that place you fly back home. No, there is not that much unknown in that.
Yeah.
But if you are, for example, if you are with your own car and you drive into Morocco, for example, and you are in the Sahara area, you're on your own.
There's nothing.
In a strange culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a sort of the same sort of experience. I traveled around Australia for 2 months. In total, I was 4 months from home, long time ago when I was young and still handsome. And I traveled. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I traveled through the desert in Australia, the bush, with a camper van, with my then girlfriend. But yeah, there's you get into places where they tell you, well, the next town is 150 miles away, and there's nothing else there. So that's really it makes you think about how small Belgium and the Netherlands are.
It is.
And how everything is so close.
Yeah. That's the same feeling when you are in the north here in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
You really have to think, okay, I have to take fuel now, because the next 200-300 kilometers, there is nothing on your way. You really have to think ahead. And that you come into areas where the mobile phone there is no connection.
Yeah.
You can't call nobody.
Would you in the beers that you make now? I don't know if this is a good question, but that feeling of that or that idea, which beer would reflect that the most?
That's a good question. I have to think now.
Yeah, I know this is not an easy question.
No, this is not an easy question. No. I have to look actually to my bottles. It's in a way, it's a beer what I don't have anymore. That was in the first set of 4 beers, and I'm thinking that it should come back in maybe in an updated recipe version. But it was that hippy dippy, all things pretty. And that was all about the hippie lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think that beer had that element really in it.
The element of the freedom probably, and
the freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
the other beer, which was also that was the first beer actually I started with this company, is the tree hugging, wood chopping, mother nature loving IPA.
Which is still around, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's still our main seller,
Which is a nice one, yeah.
and that's also it's telling a lot about how I think in a way about
Yeah.
nature and
Because you are a hippie.
that's what people say.
That's
I
what
don't know.
people
I'm not
say.
sure what
I don't know. I don't know either, actually. But would you describe
I was.
yourself as a hippie?
Yeah, that was funny. That was 3 years ago. I was on a beer festival in London,
Hmm.
and I walked, through on the free day. I walked through the small streets there, and I was on the free market, and then there came two girls to me, and they said, "Hey, you are a real hippie. The other ones are just urban hippies here, but you are a real hippie." I had to laugh.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
But it's something, what, of course, you get a stamp, and then sometimes that stamp fits you and sometimes not. So
Yeah, of course, yeah. What I was also wanting to ask you about is you said a little bit about that already, is but where does your love of beer, or maybe even broader of flavors and tastes, come from? Do you know when you had your first experience, when you had like, wow, this is interesting, when you tasted something or smelled something?
well, the first, that goes back, I think, when I was around, what age? I was around 11, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were on a holiday in France with my parents,
Okay.
and we were on the beach and on a lake. I don't remember what was the name of the lake. And I had to bring something to the garbage. And I came to the garbage bin, there was that kind of big metal bin, and it was filled up and also covered around it with empty cans. And they were all beer cans and bottles, basically.
Okay.
And as a small boy, I took a few up. And there was something so fascinating about those, especially those beer brands and those cans, how they looked. And from there, I started to collect bags, and those bags came back to Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically the first step into the beer world where those brands, I don't know, they were pulling me in somehow.
And
There was
was it
something exciting in
was it
it.
the design, or how they looked, or the way they smelled, or
Something about the smell and the feeling they gave. Not even about the design, but there was a
okay,
certain feeling.
okay.
So that was the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second one was years later. Um, the funny thing was that when I was studying, as a kid, I never knew what I wanted to do in life.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. I had
Well,
no jobs, or I had no dream jobs. No idea. And when I was around 16, no, I was around 17, I guess. Also, my parents were a bit desperate with me, I no clue what to do.
yeah.
So they were sending me to that kind of job test. I think in Holland in that time, the unemployment office was doing a test. So
Okay.
you had to go a day there, and they asked you all kind of questions. And then they hopefully would find the kind of ID.
Okay. I'm very curious what they told you.
Yeah. The funny thing was that I did a cleanup at home 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
I found that paper.
Oh
So it was a
wow,
really
that's brilliant.
fresh reminder.
You
And
actually
so that,
kept it.
yeah, it was between my papers.
Wow, cool.
And I was reading that paper, and I had to laugh. Because after a day of testing, and then that took probably a week before that paper was sent by post to my home.
Mm-hmm.
And the paper said that Ronald is not really interested in any kind of job.
Well, it might be very accurate.
It is, and now comes the best. But he said, but he is drawn to adventure,
Cool.
and they had 3 recommendations for me.
Okay.
And one was photography.
Yeah.
Now, photography has been my passion
Okay.
since 15 years, or long actually. Already in when I was a teenager, I made a lot of pictures as well, but just as a click-clack. And the other one was laboratory education.
Okay.
And then was food technology, number 3.
Food
So
technology. Okay.
yeah, so then I made a simple choice. I didn't even go to visit any of those educations. I said, okay, photography was my passion. But when I looked a bit deeper, there was too much maths involved.
Mhm.
I didn't want that. A lab sounded boring.
Yeah.
Food technology, yeah, I was interested in tasting.
Yeah.
And food, okay, go for that.
Okay.
And when I started that education, first I went to army, so I had still, a bit of thinking time, but nothing clear came out of that.
I cannot imagine you in the army for some reason, but well.
That was also my father also have to laugh when I told that. Because you have to brush your shoes, and everything must be tip top.
Yeah.
And then I didn't like my shoe brushing and walking, what is it called in English, that you have to
Marching.
march,
Yeah.
I was always the only one who couldn't keep up with the rhythm, so I always fell out of that rhythm.
Yeah.
But they called me, it was a sergeant, he called me afterwards. I was the volleyball.
The volleyball. Nice.
Because I didn't take care of my my clothes and my shoes.
Perfect. The volleyball from the army.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, food technology.
Food technology, yeah.
Yeah. So when I started to study that, then it was split up in different segments. So you had like the chocolate and coffee, you had the dairy section, the vegetables and meats, water cleaning, and beer technology. And straight, beer technology, was really something I really liked it. So the third year, then you had a training year, and you could put your wishes, what you wanted, what you would like to what kind of company you would like to work with. And I had a small brewery, and in that time, I would have liked to go to it in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But that place I didn't get. But then I got a place in the Raaf.
Okay.
I was working there for 3 months, and we were very small in that time. So in those 3 months, I could do everything from brewing to bottling to fermenting. And I really liked it.
The perfect school, basically.
Perfect school.
Yeah.
And after the end of my study, then the brewery called and said, hey, we had such a good experience of you. Would you like to have a job as a brewer? I said, perfect. So I didn't have to think, what kind of job I was going to look for. It just came.
Yeah. So you basically so just rolled into the beer world.
Yeah.
Going moseying on, as they say in cowboy style, moseying on, and you just rolled into the beer world, basically.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was also the experience. Okay, you got the experience from a craft brewery, and we were just in the states of first slow and then fast growing. We had the first Dutch wheat beer.
Yeah.
Wheat beer, and that became so popular. So first we were making 10 beers. In the end, we could only produce 1 beer anymore because it took all over.
Just because of our capacity. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you came into the situation that all the big breweries in Holland were looking for a wheat beer. So we were bought over by Oranjeboom, in
Yep.
that time an independent brewery in Breda.
Yeah.
And Oranjeboom had big plans of building up a new brewery next to the existing brewery. So we would have a lot of capacity more. But 6 months after Oranjeboom bought Raaf, Interbrew bought Oranjeboom. And
Okay.
of course, Interbrew had InBev now, had Hoegaarden,
Mm-hmm.
and they were not interested in keeping us alive.
Yeah.
So the plans were cancelled, no new brewery, and they were going to close us down. Production of our wheat beer was transferred to Arce, and slowly that was replaced with Hoegaarden. So
Okay. So that's why the
there was
RAF
a
doesn't exist anymore, basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's the
But
story of
again, it
a
was
lot. Story of a lot of breweries, I think.
true,
Yeah.
true. But it wasn't that. When I look back now, it was a good experience to see how those things work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's fast forward a bit to Flying Dutchman, of course, because that's your baby right now.
Yeah,
The names, the names of your beers. I think you might be the only one that can remember them because
yeah.
they're so long. Is that why do you make the names so long?
Well, when before I started the Flying Dutchman, was thinking, what can you do, as a new company to stand out from the
Hmm.
crowds? Because there were already quite a lot of craft breweries. The big boom was already many years before I started,
Yeah.
so I came in quite late, I have to say. I was really thinking, what is different, and long names came up quite quickly. Actually, nobody
Okay.
had long names. Everyone had like quite a graphic kind of designs
Yeah.
and skulls and monsters and that kind of stuff. And okay, that
Because that
direction I don't
because
want to
that's
go.
because that's what the beer geeks like, of course. Skulls and
Yeah,
monsters and yeah.
yes, yeah. But that's the direction I didn't want to go, but because that's done already,
Hmm.
and you have to find also something what fits you.
Yeah, sure.
What can represent you, your own ideas and your own feeling, and you as a person.
Hmm.
I think it's important that that's in one line.
Yeah.
So the long name came up quite quickly, and I think the long name is really a nice tool, because with that long name, you can tell a little bit of a short story already in that name.
Hmm.
It tells you something about the beer, and it gives you kind of a feeling what it is about,
Yeah.
and that's really nice.
Yeah. Well, I like all of them, but the one I like the most is the more dry and sour than your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
It's a really good name, and I was just wondering, is that based on a true story, or is it just because it was funny?
It's because it's of course a joke. We all make jokes about our mother-in-law,
Of
and
course.
how tricky they can be,
Hmm.
because in a way your mother-in-law is the first judge in a way who you have to face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
Are you a good boy for my daughter?
I think my mother-in-law is actually watching this, so
Okay. But you are a good boy, so
I
you
am
have no
I'm
fear.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yes. So we made a joke, yeah, about
Okay.
that, and the other one, what is, I think the most popular name is More Complicated Than Your Girlfriend.
That's also a nice
That's
the stout. Yeah, that's also a
every
nice one.
yeah, every man or every guy recognize the idea behind that name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, maybe I don't know if this is true, but when I see your bottles and the way you design them and how they look in the names, I think
Yeah,
they're kind of, as you said, a bit different from the rest of the beer world.
yeah,
Maybe even a little more feminine, a little softer than the
true.
usual beers that you see.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but I guess that's also a conscious choice because that's
It
maybe
is.
closer to your character, or
Yeah, I think it is it's a conscious choice. If you think about the other kind of, you know, the more rougher styles, for example, like the skulls we just talked, that's very strong masculine. What we do with my beers is really a balanced way. You have the masculine and the feminine quite in balance. And that's something, you know, what we all have, I think, represents us as well. Like we go through life, you know, and we think we are born as a man and we can only be a man, or only a woman and only feel like a woman. But basically, inside us is both.
yin
We
and
have
yang.
both elements. Yes, exactly, yin and yang.
Yeah. Okay.
And if we want to have a balanced life, it's important that we take care of both those parts. Not only identify ourselves with, okay, I'm a man, I'm very strong masculine.
Do you think that there's too little of that kind of thinking in the beer world? Because the beer world is very masculine.
Yeah,
99% of it.
Yes, I think I see that a bit as a missing, yeah.
Because that might also be why, and that's a cliche as high as a house, but is that also why there's more men drinking beer than women drinking beer?
Maybe one, of course, it comes also from, you know, our habits and old traditions where, you know, in the old days, only men went to a bar and only a man was having beer and a woman then had the wine.
Yeah.
That has completely changed.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see, you know, when you go to a bar and it's 50-50, it's like, or even like more women than men. I'm really happy to see that we have come into balance now, where women are the same passionate about beer as men.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's very positive, and that's the way we should go.
Yeah.
It's a beer for both, and that's also what I do with my flavors. I try to attract also the women in this.
Yeah.
Like the rose hip, it is already, of course, a pink label, and the element of the rose hip and the flower, it's very feminine, of course, and that attracts ladies.
Yeah. Yeah, I always get annoyed when I do tastings and there's usually about 5 women in the group of 30 people. And then beers or whatever, or spirits or whiskeys, whatever, they are sometimes referred to as, well, this is a women's whiskey or this is a women's beer. And I absolutely hate that phrase because that's just stupid.
Yeah.
It has no meaning whatsoever.
No. And in that way, you know, I'm of course used of Scandinavia, and there the women have been already in a strong position, you know, since the 60s basically. So
yeah, you've got in Finland, you've got the prime minister is also the young lady.
All the main ministers, you know, from all the parts, they are all women on the moment, and all around 35 years old, so really young women. And I think that tells something about the cultural thinking.
Yeah.
And also that was already when I had the other company in the 90s, and we got brewery guests from Belgium, you know, and Holland and England. And when we went to bars in Helsinki, they were always surprised because we had so much women in the bars. They, you know, in England and Belgium in that time, and also Holland. Holland maybe a bit more, but in that time that was not so common.
Yeah.
And then also they were surprised that women, they all had those half-liter beer mugs in their hands.
They weren't just there for decoration. They actually drank the beers.
No.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that's something what for me that has been normal already long.
Yeah.
And I think I hope that will also change in other countries. And I see also now when I've been more in Italy, there I think it's also really mixed, quite a fair mix, I would say.
Well,
So it has really
it's
changed.
changing for sure. I mean, you see that it's just changing. So it's that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen,
Because it's,
I told
also,
you. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Tell me.
and it's also, like, it's not that women, they only like to have a sweeter beer, but they
No.
also like IPAs and
Well, there's a story I always tell when I do whiskey tastings. Is my girlfriend, she didn't like whiskey, and she always asked me, well, teach me and give me something I might like, and I always gave
yeah,
her the lighter stuff and the fruity stuff and the sweeter stuff, and she never liked it. And then one day I had a tasting at home with some guys, and I had something left in my glass, and she got my glass and she went tasted it, and she went, oh, I like this one, and that was
yeah,
a 61% alcohol, very peaty, full of smoke whiskey. So
yeah.
basically the heaviest stuff you could get, and she liked
You
that. So
see, yeah,
it's the perfect
great.
example of never go for prejudices or for what people
No,
might like or whatever.
no,
Just yeah, flavor is so personal. So
exactly. And that's also, on tastings when you hear sometimes that, somebody doesn't like beer, for example. They have
oh
just a
yeah, also a good one.
focus on, I don't like beer. Well, I think you haven't tasted then the right beer, but for sure there are nowadays certain types of beer you could easily like,
Yeah, yeah,
but
that
you have
kind
to
of
taste the
people.
right one.
Yeah, I tell that kind of people, I think you do like beer, but you just I'll have to find the good one for you
Yeah,
because there's so much. I mean, I did a tasting this afternoon with three beers. I started with Dusky Amarillo, which is a 4% session IPA, and I ended with Millionaire, which is a milk stout with caramel from Wild Beer Company.
yeah,
I mean, there's so much in between those two, and even beyond those two, even more to the extremes.
yeah, yeah,
There's bound to be something that you like or that you enjoy.
yeah, exactly. I have one good example. For example,
Hmm.
my father, he never liked alcohol,
Okay.
and of course beer totally not. It was always too bitter.
Hmm.
So he basically never drank alcohol until I started to make the first sour beer. I had the
Ah,
rosehip and the apple with,
there's no bitterness
and
there,
he
of course. Yeah.
no, and he was tasting that, and he loved it. And since that time, first drinking only sour beers,
Yeah.
and now he can drink IPAs even. Think about
Okay.
that.
That's
Completely changed.
it's the power of education.
Yeah, and slowly,
Yeah.
training your taste buds,
Yeah,
getting
your
used of
palate
certain
changes, of
flavors.
course, over the years. You change all the time in what you
Definitely,
like, how you like stuff. So yeah, yeah.
definitely. What was for you, 10 years ago, way too bitter, and you taste it now, and then you say, there's nothing bitterness in this,
Hmm.
what was wrong with my flavor?
Well,
But
nothing. You
you have
just change.
developed.
You change. That's the
Yeah,
thing. That maybe the beer doesn't change, but you change, and
yeah,
that's the most important thing.
yeah,
Say, Ronald, in preparing this, I told you that at one moment I would go. Well, we're almost busy for an hour now, and we haven't even noticed that we're talking for about an hour already. Um,
no, and still not ready.
and so we're still not ready. We can still go on for hours and hours, I guess. But
Yeah,
we'll leave that for the after talk. Leave the official
yeah,
stream. We'll stop that in a couple minutes. Um, there's a couple of questions I like to ask all my guests,
okay,
and then I'm going to ask you one more that I don't ask all my guests, but I'm going to ask you specifically. Um,
yeah,
well, one question that I really like, and it's a really difficult one. I hope nobody ever asks me. Is so you get eternal life, and you get one bottle with you, and the bottle keeps refilling. So you get eternal drinks, but only with one thing. You're bound to drink the same thing forever. What would that be?
and it should be alcohol.
No, yeah, whatever you can choose. You can choose.
Yeah, if it would be only one drink, of course, yeah, but that's a surviving state. That would be water.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's the healthy
But
choice.
yeah,
But you
but
have
thinking
eternal life, so
about
you don't have to be healthy.
no, that's true. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't die. It would be beer.
Hmm.
Definitely. I love wine as well, but I enjoy so much more from a good glass of beer.
Okay.
Tricky one.
Hmm.
If I think about my own products, I would definitely choose the raspberry porter.
Okay.
And why? Um, that's a beer, what has all elements basically. It has the roastiness, it has some chocolate, it has the fresh sourness from the berry. You can drink it with cold weather, with warm weather on the terrace. It fits with certain
Okay.
foods. It goes, it's very broad.
That's a good choice. I mean, it's not something I would expect a porter
No,
to
because
to be
yeah,
chosen.
because it's
Yeah.
if a stout is many times too heavy, you
Yeah.
don't want that if you sit on a terrace.
Hmm.
Um, a blonde, an IPA, okay, in a dark winter you want something else,
Yeah.
and that raspberry porter fits just perfectly in all those different
Okay.
circumstances. It fits for cold weather, warm weather, as a dessert, as an aperitif in a way. It's a different type of beer.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good choice. I also
And then
I always like it when people make a choice and they don't go like,
yeah,
oh, I don't know, and but you were going
yeah,
to add
but then
something.
yeah, and then if I have a choice, not my own products but something else,
Hmm.
um, I would choose an English ale, an English bitter,
Okay.
like a type of, for example, Spitfire ale.
Oh wow, that's also
It has
an
some,
interesting choice.
yeah, it has a bit of the maltiness. It has a bit bitterness, and it has, the subtle hoppiness.
Because
It's a
it.
beer you
That's
can
yeah.
drink and don't get tired from it, and you can have it next day, and it has something you
That's
don't get
really
tired of it.
interesting. That's really interesting because that's the kind of style of beer that's not really exciting. That nobody
No,
finds exciting or nobody finds
but
especially interesting.
yeah, it's so, I think, undervalued, maybe,
Hmm.
if I can say that at this moment, because it's not over the top of anything, but it's all pure balance. It's such a beautiful beer when you think about balancing.
All right.
It's um, I think it comes back, and I think the way I think about beer, and even I use a lot of ingredients and sometimes very weird ingredients, but still I always look for that balance, that it's
Yeah.
not over the top. You can add a lot of spices, but if you only taste a certain spice, it's
Yeah.
out of balance, in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Is
And
the
an English ale was for me also like Belgium brought me the sour beers.
yeah.
Uh, England, in that time when I started to import beers in the 90s, I came really into love with English ales. And there was that subtle hoppiness. Was so they are the masters in that. They are the true masters.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that. I like that. Is there any dream beer you still have that you want to make yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. There's always dreams about all different types and different
Yeah.
styles of beers. Yeah, in this moment I don't do any barrel aging.
Hmm.
That's something,
Okay.
but something else, something extra in it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
something with to play with wood. I am There is a fascinating part in that.
Yeah, the role that wood plays in
Yeah,
aging is really interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
And also what
and
kind of
also
type of wood?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe you should get your hands on some chestnut or acacia wood. That's really good.
yeah.
They use acacia wood for grappas, for example,
Oh
and it
yeah,
gives a
yeah,
really nice flavor. And also really nice is in what they do in Brazil is they use tropical wood like amburana, stuff like that, and that also gives
Oh,
a
yeah.
really fun flavor to stuff. So
Yeah, sounds nice.
yeah, well, okay, cool. Um, One question I really wanted to ask you because it's such a good story. I already know the answer, but well, you had a lot of jobs before you became a brewer, but there's one
Yeah,
that stands out.
yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, that was in Finland. I have to tell a little bit why, before I tell what kind of job it was.
Mhm.
When I moved to Finland, and I was in the early 90s, it was in 92. And when I came there, Finland was in a really deep recession, and something we haven't had in the 90s, like in Holland or Belgium.
Mhm.
The reason was that basically all Finnish export was done to Russia, to the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union had just collapsed before
Mhm.
that. So Finland lost all their export, and then also the banking business have given loans in other currencies, and the Finnish mark was devalued. So people were in big problems. So the unemployment was 25% when I was there. And then you come there as a foreigner and you don't speak their funny language.
Yeah.
And how to find
Oh,
work. So
you should do a beer with a Finnish name, with a really long Finnish name.
true.
It would be
The Finnish
very
words
funny
are very
on the
long,
label.
so that would be easy.
Yeah, it would be very funny on the label.
Yeah,
Go
it's a
ahead.
good
Sorry, I
idea
interrupted
actually.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, and so I was working on cruise ships for a while and in restaurants just to survive. And then I got a job as a mermaid. That was in a mix. It was a nightclub entertaining park mixture.
Oh, that's a
So
good
you
mixture
have
too. Yeah.
it's a funny mixture.
Yeah.
So it was a huge place with a few thousand people in, live music, and then you had the entertainment side next to it, an entertainment park in a way, and that was in the old style, 50s style. So I was the male mermaid, and
Hmm.
next to me was the female
Okay.
mermaid. So we were in our swimming things, and I had to lay on a bench,
Yeah.
and in front of me there was a metal fence, and on that metal fence was a little spot,
Okay.
and all the girls had to throw balls to me, to the male mermaid,
Yeah.
and they had to try to hit that little spot. And if they hit that spot, I would drop
You
into
would
the
fall into.
water.
Okay. Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I don't know if you can generalize like that, but uh, women are many times not so good in throwing balls and getting it to a point.
Hmm.
But it gets even different when alcohol is involved.
Yeah.
So on one evening, I hardly felt any time in the water, and the girl mermaid was
Dropping all the
falling a
time.
lot in the water. So that was a strange job.
Yeah. It sounds like a strange job. So
Yeah, an experience again.
yeah. Yeah. Are there any photos of that running around?
I at least don't have anything myself.
Yeah, but
No.
that was before the internet, of course. So
Yeah,
that's maybe a good thing.
there was no internet in that time. Hard to think
It's
about that.
such a good story that yeah. In the live chat, Christophe from Gobsmack is saying, please don't do that to me, the Finnish name. So if you do make a beer with the Finnish name, you should also only make it for export, nothing for Finland. It's
Yeah,
only for
exactly.
out for outside. So,
Yeah,
and
the longest
please,
Finnish word with all
yeah,
the dots on the letters.
yes, please do it to Christophe. Please do it.
Yeah,
I'll buy a case of
I
it.
will do it for you, Christoph.
Yeah, perfect. Listen, I'm going to ask the people in the live chat if anybody has any more questions. So please put them in the live chat now, so I can still ask them to Ronald.
Yeah.
in while waiting for any more questions, the one thing I always ask people is, do you think that beer can save the world?
Mm. Yeah, good question.
Mhm.
uh, in a way, in a
Yeah.
way, I think if we would all, it's like make love, not war,
Hmm.
So when we drink beer, we most, of course, when you drink it in moderation, we get more happy, we are more loving, and we see the other ones through our pink
Hmm.
pink sunglasses. Everything looks more beautiful. So I think in that way,
Yeah.
yeah, if it could save the world.
It could save the world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we could give Trump, for example, a bottle of rosehip,
Well, I
might
think I think
help.
he might need more than a bottle, but we could try it. We could send him a case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he wouldn't be enjoying a pink labeled beer with whatever.
No,
So
no.
meanwhile, Christoph in the live chat is now vowing that if you make the Finnish named beer, he will learn to pronounce it like a true Finn. So
Yeah, I can promise I will be his teacher.
yeah. You should do YouTube films on how to pronounce your beer. So yeah, well,
Yeah,
I'm seeing an entire business model in this, but well,
yeah,
that might take us too far. I'm not seeing any more questions. I think we've talked about a lot already, but
yeah.
before I ask you one final thing, is I would like to thank everybody watching. Thank you all for being here. It's always fun. It is fun to talk to Ronald, but it's more fun if people are watching. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. We've got 2 more late nights planned before the summer. Next week on Thursday, we'll have Shilton Almeida, who is the brand ambassador for Paul John whiskey, which is the Indian whiskey. Really nice guy, an internet phenomenon. He's making really cool TikTok movies right now, and also just a nice guy. So be sure to tune in for that one. And then the week after, the 25th, we'll have a Belgian guest again, Bert Bruneel, who is the independent bottler Asta Morris. A whiskey bottler. He also bottles rum. We don't yet know in which language we'll do that because he's from West Flanders and I'm from Antwerp, so we don't really know yet what will be the most understandable for everybody. We'll see what happens. But and then we'll take a recess for the summer and see for September. Probably we'll come back because this is just too much fun to do. But please leave us some feedback if you would like that or not. If you want to, yeah, you've seen it in the live stream. There's a small thing running below with the link to our website. There's also a link to Flying Dutchman, of course, if you want some more info on the beers that Ronald is making. And there's also a bit of info on Billy's Bottle Shop from Billy's Beer Cafeteria, the beer bar in Antwerp. The bar is not open
Yeah.
yet, but the bottle shop is open. So if you want to support your locals, go there, buy some beers. They'll enjoy that, and you'll enjoy that because their beers are really nice. The beers are really nice. And that leaves me with one final question: Is do you have anything more you want to share with humanity that you want to finish on, Ronald?
Um, I think just about, like do in your life what gives you joy. Uh, I think it's important, that everyone tries to find their passion. I think that's a big struggle, for most people. That looking for happiness in different ways, and I think it's try to find your own passion in whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
and follow that. And even if that goes against what the people around you might think, or expect from you, but I think that will give joy in your life.
I think that's a really good message to everybody.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are thinking now during this corona about this, what kind of life change they
Yep.
need or want. I think
I
that's
think
the
so
big
too.
wake-up call now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we might see a lot of changes in the next coming months and years.
I
So
think,
yeah,
yeah, if you feel trapped in a 9 to 5 job, and that's something you don't want to do, then yeah, try to think about something else. There's a world of possibilities now. Like now, our technology we use here to have a conversation is
yeah,
amazing, and that's a big changer.
it is. I'm talking to somebody on a small island in Norway and streaming it
Yeah,
to
good.
people,
Think
I guess,
about
from
it.
all over the world. I don't know where people are tuning in from, but this is fun. So this is yeah, it's cool. Thank you so much, Ronald, for being our guest tonight,
Thank,
for having a
thank
nice
you,
chat of.
Jeroen. Was a pleasure, and I really liked your deep questions.
Thank you. Yeah, well, yeah. I prepared some, but I improvised most of them. So well.
Good.
No, thank you so much, everybody in the stream. Thank you for watching. I'm going to stop the stream now. If you want to rewatch this, it'll be on the YouTube channel tomorrow. And please keep enjoying good beers and stay safe. And see you all soon, hopefully. Bye bye.
Yes. Thank you. Bye bye.